One of the first articles that I read in 2009 was published in 2007 in Scientific America. And one of the authors was John White, who's a PhD biochemist from Montreal, Canada. And I got to meet him through vitamin D meetings. He's a great man, great scientist, publishes great vitamin D research. He is focused on vitamin D research. And he talked about, it's called Cell Defenses in the Sunshine Vitamin. And he talked about how vitamin D cured rickets and cured tuberculosis, and they would put people out in the sunshine and cure tuberculosis. And I thought, I just got board certified in internal medicine. I never knew any of this stuff. How come they didn't teach this stuff in medical school? And that paper did not have any references. And when I finally met him at a vitamin D meeting in Houston, Texas in 2012, I said, John, why didn't you have any references? You know how hard it was for me to track all this stuff down. So they wouldn't let me put references in. So Scientific America didn't allow references. So I went on this hunt trying to figure out how vitamin D cures tuberculosis. And that's what led me to the data in the 40s where they were using vitamin D to cure tuberculosis. Well, if you take it back from there, they were also using phototherapy to treat psoriasis, or to treat tuberculosis. And then I heard about somebody getting a Nobel Prize in medicine. Well, it turned out there was a doctor named Niels Ryberg Finsen. He got the Nobel Prize in medicine in 1903 for curing long-standing cases of tuberculosis infections, which had spread from the lung to the skin, and it would cause these horrific skin ulcerations with a predilection for the nose or for the face, and they would eat away people's noses and just cause these grotesque disformations. Between 1895 and 1906, he treated over 800 patients with refracted light rays from an electric arc lamp, and he cured who had lupus vulgaris. They called it this systemic tuberculosis infection, lupus vulgaris, that caused these crazy ulcerations on the skin. He treated over 800 patients and cured over 400 of them. It was such an outstanding discovery, and they had that he got the Nobel Prize Award for it in medicine or physiology in 1903. So his method of phototherapy became the standard of care for treating tuberculosis until the 1940s when antibiotics were discovered. And he knew that sunshine had a beneficial effect on health. And this guy was born somewhere in Scandinavia, Finland or Iceland, and that's where he stayed and practiced in Denmark and those areas. And he said he got interested in it because animals always seemed to want to lay in the sunshine. So he figured sun did something to the body to help promote health. It probably did something to the blood, but he had no idea what it was. So he dies in 1904. Vitamin D was discovered in 1922. They first isolated it from cod liver oil and the skin laboratory animals. And then chemists figured out its chemical structure in the 1930s. I mean, these are brilliant people. I mean, how do you do that in the 1930s, right? So by the 1940s, doctors said, this phototherapy treatment's great, but it's a pain. Why don't we just give them vitamin D? And they did that. And they gave them 100,000 to 150,000 units a day every day for 2 to 3 months, and they cured long-standing cases of tuberculosis. They were still treating lupus vulgaris. I mean, these people had this disease for 10, 20, 30 years, just chronic suffering, and they get better within a couple months just by giving vitamin D. So all of a sudden they can turn on that gene and start cranking out peptides. And so this Dr. Dowling, who read several of the papers in that era, in 1946, says there's no longer any doubt that this treatment works. We got to figure out how it works. And 60 years later, that science publication came out describing how it works. And guess how many people with tuberculosis are getting treated with vitamin D today? The big fat zero. Why? Because they're still trying to figure out if it has a role. It's like, and I've cited all these papers in every one of my publications.